Hey everybody, welcome to the HeartFelt podcast with Dr. Sam Marie and myself, Coach David Syvertson. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset.
All right, welcome back to the HeartFelt podcast. I am Coach David Syvertson. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. and Coach Sam Marie, and we have a repeat guest right in between us. Amy Edelman, a female athlete from CrossFit Bison, who also happens to be a mother of two beautiful daughters, and we are sitting here on Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day. You get to be on the HeartFelt podcast.
Thank you.
But Amy just wrapped up her 2024 semifinals, 4 workouts over the course of essentially 4 days, and she is signed, sealed, delivered. Doesn't sound like she's going to be repeating any tomorrow, and so she's all wrapped up, and this is the season, open, quarterfinals, semifinals. If she finishes top 40 in the world, she moves on to the CrossFit Games. And instead of us doing the traditional break down this, break down that, this workout, that workout, which is always fun, I want to go a little bit deeper just into Amy's experience over this 3-part season. She's one of 5 people in our gym that had a three-part season. She did the open. She did the qualified for the quarterfinals. Then she qualified for the semifinals. And I think there's a lot of feedback and input we can get from her, just in terms of like the mental approach, the emotional approach, the physical toll, for A, people that want to maybe pursue that level of competition, but also B, what every CrossFitter can relate to is just trying to find that balance of fun, health, fitness, competitive nature, and just being smart with how we approach this stuff, because we are here for health. That's why we're all here. And then some of us like to get into the competitive mindset, but there's a lot of angles to this. And we just talked briefly off camera that this conversation is usually like really choppy, back and forth, lacks rhythm. And that is almost every single conversation I have with a member from CrossFit in terms of like, hey, so where are you at? Where do you want to be? You know, it's never like a straight shot answer. So I think the more we talk about it and the more we hear from different outlets, different experiences, it can actually help form some of our own thoughts. That's really the main goal. So Amy, you just got done with semifinals. Where's your head at right now? Is there like a sense of relief, or is it stress? What is it?
Relief. Definitely relief.
Yeah. You look relieved.
I do.
You look the most relieved you looked in 5 days.
100%.
Yeah.
It's nice to have it behind me and kind of knowing that tomorrow I can wake up and have a normal day and not wake up and kind of be a little worried and stressed out, which is, common for me before any competition.
Sam,
So.
do you know what she's talking about? Have you related to that? Like these competitions, quarterfinals, like what you felt after?
Yeah, I mean, I only made it to quarters, and after quarters, it was almost like an absence of pressure. Like, it was like, oh, I don't have to think about what I have to do this week with these workouts or anything. I can not work out if I want to, or I can work out, but just work out for fun. Like, it's been a while. Like, every year, like, you go through that, and if you're competitive, it does feel like pressure has just been taken off you.
It is. It is a lot.
And a lot can change year to year. And I have been coaching Amy on the side in addition to Bison for a couple years now, and I've seen her go through both these. I've been through these. I think, Sam, you've been through this as well, and I know many that have listened, are listening, have been through it, where if you do this cycle 2, 3, 4 years, maybe even more, you've experienced okay, it's over. I'm ready for next year. Let's go. I'm seeing red. I want to train tomorrow morning, Dave. Let's go. Or you've been the other side. I'm burned out. I need to walk away from this gym for a week. I don't want to look at a workout. I don't want to look at a barbell. Why do we think? Why does this happen? Why do we have such different reactions to competitive seasons? Whether it's the open, quarterfinal, semifinal. Because we have people in this gym, and there's people listening that their goal is just the open next year. I want to finish here. Others are, I want to make quarterfinals. Others are semifinals. Others are games. We all are going to circle back to the same exact place. We got knocked out unless we win the games, right? Which is another way of saying, hey, you're not good enough to qualify for the next level. And coping with that can come up with two reactions. I want to see red. I want to go after the higher level next year, or I need to get away from this stuff for a little bit. You've been through both, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you, what's the change? Why?
I mean, I go through a lot of emotions, I think, after each competition.
Yep.
A little bit of both. A little bit of, I'm exhausted, I am done.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I can't wait to do the next one. And that's the problem, I think, because I'm like, oh, there's so much time. I have months before the next one. And then I'll be fine. And then I start getting back into it. And I'm like, I'm not fine. Like, I'm not. Because it's a lot. Because it's not just physical. It's mental. It's a lifestyle that can sometimes be really hard to maintain. Because it's not just what you're doing working out in the gym. It's not just your training sessions. Like, you have to think about what you're eating, how you're sleeping, how much water you're drinking, and having that constant pressure to do all those little things. It can get overwhelming when you have kids, family, house, everything else. So it's a lot. So, I mean, it's a lot of back and forth, and I felt it, I think, going into the open. I had my mixed feelings going into the open, being like, all right, we'll see what happens. And then when I'm in it, I'm like, I need to do this. So it's a lot of back and forth. It's a roller coaster.
Now, Sam, that it is a roller coaster. That's the description of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I've like talked people out of going into the competing lifestyle for a few times over the years, because it's not what you think it is. It's not all what we just did today, where you get a lot of support and screaming and working hard. Like, that's just like 1% of it. The other 99% is, some of it's just as fulfilling and fun, but it's also it's like a job, really, if you want to get to
that you probably don't get paid for.
You probably pay for, right?
You're paying.
You lose money on this job.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's a great point as well. Sam, you've been on this side where, Sam's one of our OG Masters competitors. Like, I always view him as that way, like one of the first guys that ever made the Age Online qualifier back in the day. And you've coached, you've been involved, and I think you're very good at listening to others, their experiences. And can you see from the outside, and also having some of the experience on the inside, of almost some empathy for the people that are competing? Because I remember you saying, like, man, I'm so happy you guys made semifinals. I am so happy I don't need to do the workouts. Can you see where that stress comes from? Because I think there is a disconnect from the outside of how hard this can be mentally for competitors. And hey, they chose their path. I don't feel bad for them, right? But I also think there's a lack of kind of true understanding that there's a real struggle there that can be hard to balance.
It is. I admire anyone who dedicates themselves to competing like you guys do. And I think actually both of you have done I've watched this year, and I think both of you have done a better job handling the pressures of it
Agreed.
than previous years. I mean, I've seen you get really like way up, like work yourself into a frenzy.
Yep.
And this year you've performed so admirably. You still got one more workout to go to,
Yep.
In your semis this year. And both of you have taken the ups and downs, I think, really well. I think when I look at it, you have to have such a strong mindset. Like, you have to commit, like, to get to the level where you guys are. And for anyone, like, listen, just saying I got to do well in the open brings a certain amount of pressure. And then for those who get to the quarters, and then for you guys, like, will you make the semis? Will you not? Like, there's a lot of emotion going up and down with every workout that you do. And you just have to kind of grit and hold on and trust the training that you've had for the whole year. And then the reward, as you said, for getting there are some unbelievably challenging workouts.
Yeah.
And, you're running the risk of injury. You're running the risk of hurting yourself. You're running the risk of, falling flat on your face. Just, you did so great in quarters, and now you're like, oh my gosh, what if I really crap the bed in semis? Like, you're worried about leaving a bad taste in your mouth with that. So ups and downs, good or bad, the fact that anyone who is gritting and holding on takes great presence of mind and strength. And that's why we do it, I think, because every time you do it, you learn something about yourself. You learn how you can challenge yourself. And like I said, it doesn't matter whether it's the open, the quarters, semis, or the games. Like, every year, I know you guys have learned a ton. Now, does it take a lot out of you? Sure, but every challenge does. But I've seen you guys, you are so much more mature, so much more methodical and experienced that like any other challenge now probably seems like, whatever. I've gone through some of the, the gauntlet here, and I think that's valuable for anybody.
Yeah, and I think it can circle back to what is the motivation, right? Like competitive stuff, high-end goals. Even if you don't want to get into the competitive scene, just like a really high-end goal that you have that is hard to obtain, and it's more than just working out. It's lifestyle-based. It has to be intrinsic motivation. I think that's where, I think when you start, some people will see like the glamour, the podium pictures, the social media posts, and that might be a reason why someone wants to get into it, right? But at some point, we talk about this all the time, there's not that many people that outside of your friends and family that truly care. It doesn't move the needle. So it's like, if that is the motivation that you think there's going to create this like huge kind of aura about you for doing something like this, at some point you find out that it's not that. And I do think that's why some people walk away from it. But if the intrinsic motivation is, I want to accomplish this, for me, like Kathleen says that all the time, this is for me. Like, I really want to go after this because this is what I want to accomplish. That's where it's kind of easy to just keep your foot on the gas and keep pursuing it. But one thing that I think causes the up and down emotions of, man, I am burnt out, because there's nothing worse than either coming up on a competition or being in the middle of a competition or training and just not having fun with it. Feeling burnt out. Yeah, we use that term a lot, whether it's a coach gets burnt out, a CrossFitter that comes 3 days a week on Wednesday at 12 p.m., Monday, Friday, 12 p.m., just like a normal CrossFitter, they get burnt out. And then competitors definitely get burnt out. And I wonder if we take on too many competitions. All right, I'll use Amy as an example here. Okay. So January rolls around, you got the Open coming up. Whole gym makes a big deal of it. So no matter what, I mean, she's going to qualify in her sleep for the quarterfinals, 10%, 25%, whatever. But she still amps herself up, getting pumped up, getting motivated, right? Open comes, crushing yourself, repeated workout maybe, right? A few weeks later, quarterfinals are here. So you come off this high of the Open, a week maybe, and then you are training for quarterfinals, higher level movements, higher weights, more attention on recovering. I really want to make semis. Put yourself through this really stressful weekend. Come down a few weeks later, you got semifinals. You come off this high of the quarterfinals, training hard, even harder movements, handstand walks, pistols, crossovers, legless rope climbs, ring muscle ups, right? You see these workouts come out, you put yourself through the blender, which you just did for 4 days. Now, whether she qualifies for the games or not, okay, you get done with semis and you can tell she's relieved. Cool. How long does that last? Is it a day? Is it a week? And let's say she doesn't make the games, and we have Legends qualifiers that are in August. What do you have to do for Legends qualifiers? You have to prepare for them. And that essentially starts in June, which is 2 weeks away.
Right.
So she qualifies for Legends multiple years in a row. She goes through the qualifiers. She qualifies in September. Yes, guys, I made it. High five. What do you have to do because you're competing at Legends in a couple months? You have to train for it. Yeah. So that's a really long way of saying there's no off season for a lot of CrossFit competitors. If you're the top of the top, they know their season is the games. So they can peak at certain times. And I think a struggle that Amy and I have both reflected with each other, there's never a stop. Right. There's never a true let my body recover. I took a cold bath and went in the sauna twice. Well, okay, what pro athlete in the world does not have an off season? Can you answer that question? The answer is none. Right? The best athletes in the world are months and months and months away from training. Yes, do they still stay active and rehab and work out occasionally? But, during Amy's off season, she's here on a Wednesday at 9:30 doing Karen Unbroken and running 2 miles and then doing assault bike sprints after because she loves it. It's right. This is where I think a lot of us can struggle on this and we can relate to each other. We feel it's our responsibility to train, so we're ready for our next thing. But we also like doing it. It's fun. Yeah. It's a hobby. It's a stress relief. We like doing it with our friends. So this is where I think the discussion can go, that I want all three of us to kind of reflect on that. Not having an off season, how do you cope with the fact there's an off season? And do you need to make a change to create an off season for yourself? And what does that off season even look like? So, Amy, just because it's kind of like probably in your head right now, like, am I programming for you this week? Like, are we doing snatches tomorrow? Like, what do you want to do going from here?
Right.
Tough.
It is. It's very hard because I'm done and I want to do what's next. And I have a very hard time coming into the gym without a goal.
Yep.
Without something that I'm trying to do, like you said, Kath does as well. Like, I need something to train for, or else I feel like I'm just floating around in space. Yep. So I need to take a break. Like, I need to step back. I need to just take a breather, and not have to feel that physical and emotional stress of constantly training. I will certainly be taking time like this week to really chill out and relax. Not that I won't be here, but but it'll just be different. And then maybe the next week I'll push in 1 or 2 workouts. But I can't keep having the stress of I'm going to push in this workout today, and then tomorrow I have to do this, and then Thursday I have to do this, and Friday that. Sometimes I just need to see how my body feels.
But you're going to get right back into it at some point, right? Like I want to know, and I know Dave has said this, man, at some point it's just going to be so great to just drop into a class, enjoy, not have to worry about this. Like,
I get jealous of it all the time.
You say that all the time, like just not have to have that kind of pressure. Yeah. And at some point, I mean, I did that this past year. Like, I was like, listen, I'm 54. There's no way anything's going to happen. And so I did. I let off the gas and I enjoyed it a lot more. But then I got in the 300ths. And then I was like, oh, crap. Maybe if I had tried a little bit harder, I could have gotten into semis. And then I'm like, oh, boy, but these workouts, I'm so glad I didn't. Like, it was kind of a mixed, weird feeling. Yeah. But when you let your foot off the pedal, it's a good feeling, but then it's like a hard feeling for a competitive athlete to do that. And so but that feeling probably grows. Like, you never said that 5-6 years ago, Dave. Never. But now you're like, oh man, I can't, like, it'll be nice one day if I can just like drop into a class and enjoy it. How close do you get every year to that?
You're asking me?
Both.
Yeah. I mean, I'm there now, to be honest with you. Like, I feel like I'm making an announcement. I'm not doing Legends this summer, so I won't try to qualify for the one in December. I might go if we have some athletes make it, though. And now I'm in my age 39 season, and this is where Masters competing makes a lot of sense to me. Like, that I can use that kind of as like what we call it a gap year. You know how some kids don't go to college right away? It's a gap year. Kind of do a little extra preparation or do other things and not compete next year. Like, no video. Here, to me, competing is I will try to make quarterfinals. But I won't videotape the workouts. And that, to me, is like, that's the sign you're not trying to move on to the next stage. Right. Because even if you crush it, you don't have videos, you're not qualifying, we think.
Well, we'll see what happens next year.
That'll be next week's episode, by the way. But I do, and it's not just I'm not capable anymore. It's not that. I do think I can qualify for semifinals next year. But I am, in this kind of hamster wheel, kind of like, just like, trying so hard, and all I want to do sometimes is come in and just work out and try hard, but things get hurt. And I feel like I'm overtraining in some ways, or I'm just underprepared to go snatch 225 after a rung 150 cals. But I try it anyway, and what happens? I get hurt. And I haven't snatched heavy in 6 months. If anyone came in the gym and said, I'm going to try to 1 rep max snatch after not snatching for 6 months, I'd be like, you're an idiot. Like, I would literally say that to anyone. And that's what I did because of other issues that just keep creeping up. And that, to me, it's like what I've always said. This is where you have to be a coach to yourself sometimes, right? I keep these things on my Instagram, like, called self-coach, like things that come to mind. And yes, I express them as a coach, but I say them to myself, is that you have to be in the process. You can't just want the result. You actually have to want the process more than the result. And the process, to me, just has not been good for a while. And some of it's my fault. Some of it, I feel like I'm just getting the short end of the stick with some recovery stuff, lifestyle things. And it actually makes competing not fun sometimes. Like, there's nothing worse than coming in and be like, man, I really wish I could just try my hardest on this workout, but this hurts, that hurts, that hurts. Or I'm afraid of getting hurt. And that's where I always say, if you're afraid of getting hurt, you shouldn't compete, honestly.
It's more mental for you, isn't it, Amy, though, at this point, the pressure? Or is it physical also, like with Dave?
It's both as far as training goes. Like,
The pressure of like, oh, this is so hard.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure, like as far as me performing and people kind of viewing me performing. That's a lot of pressure on me. Sorry, I did have a different thought in my head. I was actually thinking about the training and taking back training, and I wanted to see how you would feel if you had took back your training, and then you came in to do a class.
Right.
And a workout that you knew that you could do really well at, but you don't.
Yeah.
Like, because you're not training.
Yeah. You're not as fit as you used to be.
That's I think the pressure that gets to me too is I would have crushed it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And can I handle that? That's the things that I don't think are very hard for me when I do take back training, I think. Yeah.
And that can take a while. That can take, I always say, like, if you're going to walk away from it or just take a step back from training, it can take a long time. It could take, like, going through the whole cycle for a year of just, like, these constant ups and downs.
Yeah.
And that's any high-performing level athlete can relate to this, that you are, the second you take your foot off the gas, everything starts going south, and you're still going to be viewed outside as, like, elite at a lot of things, but like, you can't do what you used to do, and that's a hard thing to accept for any athlete. Right.
And I don't know if I can handle that.
Right.
Like, I really don't. Like, that's very hard for me.
Yep.
To handle, I think.
And I think a lot of us relate to that. Even conversations I've had with people from the gym that have nothing to do with sport. They hate the sport. They just want to work out.
Right.
But they're like, man, I just don't bounce back the way I used to. I can't lift this anymore. I lost my muscle up. And this is where I think CrossFitters can help each other out. That we do go through a lot of the same things. You don't see it. And I think one thing we need to do a better job of as coaches, as athletes, is really kind of understanding where someone's at and kind of not showing them sympathy, but just being like a complete understanding and just having a conversation with them about it and relating that person or yourself if you're going through something similar, because it does make people feel better to know that others are going through it as well. And we're all getting older, dude. Like, we're all going to fight. We're all going to lose that battle at some point. It's, like, inevitable. You're not going to come in here and bang out muscle-ups the rest of your life. So at some point, you're going to come in here and not be able to do it. And this is where I think you can precondition your response to it a little bit, that that's coming, and don't put too much self-worth into it.
Yeah.
And that is hard to do, especially if you take a lot of pride in your performance.
No, I was going to say, I think one day I was talking to you, and I said, I've been putting a lot of thought into what if, or when the day comes that I don't have some of the better scores and times in the gym, how am I going to handle that? Right. Like, what am I going to do with it? Like, I have to find something to be myself outside of that.
I'm happy to help you with not having the best times in the gym. Lots of stuff you can do.
Well, Sam, reflect on your experience a little bit, because you stepped back a little bit, and in my opinion, you're still fit as hell. And I bet there are some advantages. Like, I don't think Amy is going to take a step back from training and all of a sudden not be able to do a wall ball. It's like, but it doesn't. But because I think the recovery and the mental, it's going to make her feel better and more free. Like, that alone is worth something in terms of performance. But there will be some she will digress a little bit. What about you? You've gone backwards?
I have. I know, like, listen, a couple of years ago, people would be gunning for scores, and they would often beat me, but at least they were gunning for my score. Right. Now, it's very rare that anyone will ever say, like, what they'll usually say is, oh, Sam, you're pretty good at burpees, or something like that, because I'm not bad at burpees, but, like, there is definitely an ego shift when you were someone that people shot for, and now years later you're just a pretty decent athlete. I mean, and you can look, and it is an ego thing. I look at my scores on the open leaderboard in our gym, and I went from like top 10, 15, 20, like it's just going down, and it is inevitable, but you have to accept it's going to hurt. Like, it hurts. I can't lie. It hurts to not be as good as you once were at something.
Yeah.
I take little personal accomplishments, like, oh, I can still do a couple 225 clean and jerks.
That's awesome.
Which, you know, I was a couple years ago at 245, but whatever.
Right.
Like, and I'm not hurt too bad. Like, there's nothing that's like injured so bad like right now. So you had to take those little things, but boy, is it an ego come down? Yeah. Like it is. And I can't lie. It hurts.
It absolutely does. I do think, you know, this is not the line everyone wants to hear when you say something like that. It is good for you to go through that, though. It's just like from a big picture lifestyle, it's good for all of us to be humbled at some point, and we all need.
Put you in check.
Yes, we all need to be humbled. Like I don't think it happens once when you're 18. Like, oh, I'm humble now. Like, no, I think we did an episode on this. Like, I think everyone needs their humility checked multiple times throughout the year, and I think CrossFit does that. I just got done with beginners with people, and I said they're like in awe of, you know, the average CrossFitter that can hang from the pull-up bar, like literally, and go run 400 meters without stopping. They're in awe of that. And I remember telling them, I was like, hey, you're going to get there someday, but when you get there, guess what? You're going to wish you could do that.
Right.
When you get there, you're going to wish you could do that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I like about CrossFit, why I think it's really healthy for people mentally. It's naturally going to humble everyone at some point. And if you always avoid those situations, being humbled and getting checked, whether you want to hear it or not, I actually think that does more long-term damage to you as a person than not doing it. So you can try to twist this a little bit and be like, hey, these days where I come in and I'm no longer the top scorer, these girls are beating me. They never used to beat me, but they're also putting the work in. Like, you can look at it two ways. Like, hey, you're helping them get better because they're proud that they're beating you. And B, it's good to be humbled by that, just from a big picture perspective. And hopefully that can help you cope with it in moments. Because I've seen people that do cope with this very poorly. You know, like, you're coping with it. It sucks. It hurts. Okay. But there are good ways and bad ways to handle that.
I think you've done a pretty good job yourself, because we have some young guys here that are just like out lifting, pushing.
Yep.
I mean, you still take your comfort in like
beating them in the open. Yeah.
But when they just sit there and just like crush a workout.
Yeah.
And you used to be the one who crushed people in workouts. How do you, like, I know you joke. Yeah. You lighten the mood.
Yes.
But it doesn't hurt a little bit there.
Oh, it does. But I really, for years now, and especially this past year, and I do think I want to give Rafi another shot. He's helped me, you know, just kind of think about things differently, not as terms of like winning and losing, but like I actually look at a guy like, we could talk about Alex, who at some point is going to probably just start crushing everything, right? And Joe Piero, who was here this morning. I used to beat him in workout in comps all the time. Now I can't even be in the same room as them. And I don't get down on myself. I actually am kind of grateful that they're here, because I actually think that it helps keep me in check and helps keep pushing me a little bit to not, you know, I've seen a lot of people that in my life over in this gym and over the years where, like, the second they get that like, okay, you're no longer there, they just give up. They're out. Either quit or they just like so anti CrossFit. Yeah. Because it's no longer about them performing at a high level. So because I've seen that, and because, you know, owner and a coach, I don't want to be that. I want to actually show that I appreciate them and I want to help them and push them. And that as what I put a lot of my self-worth into. And it helps. It helps cope with that stuff. It's like, you know, when you can actually spin it so you're making a difference in their life by coaching them, helping them, you know, maybe even laying down the foundation. Like, I want some of our athletes that used to be the diehards in 2014, 15, 16 that are no longer the diehards. They kind of like laid the bricks out for everyone else. And that, you should take a lot of pride in that. And, you know, we're going to be here another 10 years at least, right? And we're laying that foundation for people that are coming here in 5 years. And we're going to be using stories that you guys have been through, the good and bad, to help them. So I think you can even look at it from, let's not just look at my score today and where I rank today. How I'm acting, what I do is going to make a difference 5 years from now, whether you realize it or not, because there's people that were doing things in 2015 here at our old space that are making a difference at this gym right now. And they didn't know it back then. So I think that's another way to look at it. It's got to go deeper than just what the score is. Now, So you go through an off season, Amy. Still don't have the answer in terms of how long, because you did say this week I'm going to step in. Now, do you want, and you should never be rushed into a decision. Hey, what should I do next?
Right.
Like, that's got to be on you. And I'm not going to ask you. But I like the number like 2-3 months is when you should really kind of be making a call. But you're kind of into Legends training by then.
Like now almost.
Yeah, really, like next month.
I mean, I had been thinking about Legends since Legends.
Right. Yep. Last year, yeah.
And when I was at Legends in December, I was like, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
When I was there, I think I was so burnt out.
Yeah.
When I was actually there competing.
That was a long 2 years.
I was
for
done.
you. Yeah. That was a long 2 years.
So I have to remind myself of how I felt last December.
Yeah, right.
Because you forget, and then I may come in 2 weeks and be like, I'm ready to go, but I have to remind myself that I need to take a break. So no, I am 99% sure that I'm not doing Legends because I need a break.
Yep.
Like, it's a lot on me. It's a lot on my kids.
Yep.
My kids are at an age where they're not gonna, in a few years, they might not want to hang out with me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
now's my chance to go do things with them.
Yep.
Instead of coming in and doing the extra training. And it's their time. It's their time to do sports and for me to go to their sports. This isn't my time for them to come see me do CrossFit.
Yep.
So, yeah, and it's hard. Like, I'm probably going to miss it and come December or August when, people that are doing
People
it
are signed up.
that are working out and training together. Like, that's what I love doing, is coming into this gym and training with the group and the camaraderie and just having that's going to be hard to not be a part of. But actually doing the competition, I think hopefully I'll be okay with not doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that could even open the door for just trying to put a little extra into next quarterfinals, because there's no urgency. Like,
right.
You should be, if that does creep into your mind, July, August, September.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I want to start amping up a little bit during the fall for the winter season instead of for a competition coming up. Like, the training looks different, and it does kind of get you back into that mindset. And that's really what the season could be.
Yeah.
Like your January through May. And that really takes a lot of pressure off these coming months.
Yeah. And I think my goal for this off season is to just take care of like any of my aches and pains.
Yep.
Like, just focus on the little things, which I think will cross over to the big picture.
Yep, absolutely.
Of just keeping up strength.
And it'll be a better experience for you when you get back into it.
Yeah, because right now it's hard to deal with the little nagging things.
It is. Yeah.
It's not fun.
Is it that training? It used to be training was fun until you just got to having to work on your weaknesses constantly, and then it's not fun.
It's not fun.
Like, that's the problem with training competitively. It's like you're not leaning into your strengths. You're constantly doing the crap that you are not good at, and you have to keep working on.
Yeah.
And the progress can be very frustrating and slow. And so I think that's part of the burnout factor, is like, oh my God, I'm going to have to work on my double unders again for 6, like I can't or pistols or whatever it is. And it's just like, I have to go through my ring muscle up progressions. And, and every time I think about, okay, what would it take for me to try to really push it? I'm like, okay, I know what I would have to do. And I'm like, do I want to do that? And that's where you have to like either buckle down as a truly competitive athlete and do it and be like, I love this. This is the process I want. Or you're just like, I can't get my mind to do that. Like, it's just, life is short. I got stuff to do.
And there's nothing wrong with saying no to it too. I think there's some pressure that I've felt in the past, you might feel coming up, where you feel like there's a lot of eyes on you, and like, if you don't do it, that means it's going to take the wind out of their sails. That's a different kind of pressure, right? If Amy takes a step back, does that mean some of the girls in the gym aren't going to want to pursue it? Because it's not that they're doing it because of her, but it's just like one less energy in the room, right? Like, I talk about this all the time.
Motivation.
Yeah, the energy in the room is great. So like, if I'm in here and you're in here and Amy's in here and Kat's in there and Alex in there, like, I want to go pursue something.
Right.
If 3 of them are out and I come in, it's like you're by yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, it sucks. And like, but that shouldn't be a reason why you pursue competition, because it's not a healthy reason.
Right.
And it can create a lot of like the roller coaster, where if you're all in and you're going to get support, we're going to help you out. But the that kind of, you have to make sure that you realize that if you, Sam, coming up on the older age group next year, if you're still like, I just don't want to go work on my snatching and my strength. There's nothing wrong with that. You should not be upset by it, angry about it, disappointed in yourself. You have more than enough going on, especially now, right? Where it's just like, that you really have to kind of be all in on wanting the process, and it's okay. You have to still like love yourself and be nice to yourself if you don't want to do it, because it doesn't mean you're a failure or you're a quitter.
But I think in that sense, also, you need to mentally prepare yourself that if this comes up in the open, I'm not going to do that well. And I think that's the hard part too, because when you're training or when you're just not training to be competitive, but you're a competitive person.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's fine, I don't have to do that. And then it comes up in the open or the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and you're not good at it.
Yep.
You get mad at yourself.
Yeah. That's so true.
But
that's
your own fault.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Right? Like,
yeah, it's like instead of saving money, you want to go on 3 big vacations this year. You're gonna, at some point, you're gonna look at your bank account. You're not gonna have that much money left. Like you got to enjoy some of those vacations, but the money, like you
have to make that choice.
The consequences are going to be there.
Well, you can hope and pray they don't come up. Dave got very lucky this year. No crossovers.
No pistol.
No pistol.
You're like, yeah, I was happy with the programming for sure.
Yeah. But I feel like that's my case in the whole season, right? Is that there's certain things that I can train only to a certain extent because I have some nagging elbow and shoulder and things like that. So but when they come up, I still get mad at myself when I don't do well.
Right. Yep. I get it.
So
yeah, I mean, to wrap this up, I would just say, one of the advantages of CrossFit sport, you can come in and out, especially in the Masters, you can take a year off and you're not going to fall off the face of the earth, right? If anything, you'd actually help your long-term out by just letting your body recover and fixing some of the issues. And, especially hopefully Bob and Joe kind of keep this mastership going because it can keep a lot of people in the game, and it's okay to take a break and come back into it. It's always going to be there. And there are other things you can pursue within CrossFit, right? Like the typical coach speak can be like, hey, try to be the person that moves perfect, like move really well. And, as coaches, Sam and I say all the time, like we get more impressed by that, or as impressed, I should say, as a really good scorer. Is this someone that just every day they come in and they just move well? We don't look at their weights. We don't look at their RX scale. They just move really well. And that could be something you pursue. There's a lot of other health and lifestyle factors that you can measure and try to repeat and pursue, right? I'm actually talking to John Hartman about that right now, like just some sort of accountability types things like we can try and pursue together. I've talked to someone else in the gym about doing one of the High Rocks Challenge, the races, just for fun, just to go out and just try something new and take the stress away from me. You're not going to train it, you're just going to go. Heresy. Yeah. Maybe the biggest competitor to CrossFit, the CrossFit Games, I would say. I don't think it'll ever get there because it's not as, we'll do an episode on that at some point, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to do it. It'd be a good episode. But Amy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Definitely proud to be with you, around you. And it's a really been, no matter what you do with the sport this year, next year, the year after, it doesn't change any view of what I have of you. And I think that's really important for you to know. And the experiences that you have had can really help a lot of others out. So I just hope that could be a motivator for you as well, just to get into a little more conversation about.
I watched you over the years, and you are such a diehard athlete. Your mind game is so strong. You overcome so many weaknesses, and whatever you do next season or the season after, it's like, I already know what I think of you, and
Thank you.
You're amazing.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.